On assignment, 1939 to 1940, Dudley Clark. Midnight, the 31st of August, 1939. Dudley Wrangle Clark climbed the winding steps to his top-floor bachelor flat in a 17th century townhouse on Stratton Street, Mayfair. The housekeeper, Dorothy, was used to his nocturnal arrivals, usually from the Café de Paris in Leicester Square. But tonight Clark was still in his work suit. There had been yet another flap in the office over Herr Hitler's demands of Poland. Clark opened the door to his flat. The visiting card of a German officer he knew lay on the doormat. He turned it over. On it were written 2 words, Auf Wiedersehen. Clark, a 40-year-old staff officer working in the War Office on Whitehall, had got on well with the German officer. Recently, late at night in Clark's flat, Clark had asked him if he thought war inevitable. "I don't know. It's probably too late to stop now." "Well, if we're going to war, I shall rely on you to send me a word of warning first," Clark had joked. The German officer's parting note was innocuous enough on the surface. He had obviously left for Germany. But for Clark, the goodbye meant something he'd thought impossible was now inevitable. War in Europe, less than 2 decades after the war to end all wars. Clark walked across to the window and looked at the lights blazing over Piccadilly in the summer night. This time he would not be left out of the action. Like many of his generation, Clark couldn't wait to fight in the First World War. The problem had been his age. Clark had been at school cadet summer camp, aged just 15, the day war had been declared in 1914. As soon as he was old enough in 1916, he signed up to the Royal Artillery as the first silver Zeppelin appeared over his family home in Frinton-on-Sea, Essex. Later that year, as a cadet at the Royal Academy, Woolwich, he wrote in desperation to his father, who was working for the Red Cross in France, asking him to inquire about the possibility of getting posted to France. "Do please try and fix things up." In 1917, while Britain reeled from the horrific death toll and the fateful name of the Somme burnt itself into the nation's psyche, a Zeppelin floated into Clark's gun sights in Norfolk. To his frustration, he was denied permission to engage for fear of destroying a village below the airship. He attempted to get to the front line with artillery replacements crossing the Channel, only to be caught in France. That year, America entered the war, and Clark began fearing the question, "What did you do in the Great War, Daddy?" He transferred to the Royal Flying Corps in a bid to get into the fight. He was 5'7" and 3/4 inches tall, a 3/4 he keenly preserved on his application, and very bright, 2 requisites of a pilot. He graded top, was selected as a fighter pilot, but the terrible winter of 1917 to 18 prevented flying training. He was disappointed to be ordered to the sunnier climes of No. 5 Aerial Fighting School, Egypt, to complete his course. He watched a torpedo from an Austrian U-boat pass astern his ship, and on arrival flew over the battle lines east of Suez. But the war in the Middle East had moved on. The Ottoman Empire's troops, driven from Egypt by General Edmund Allenby, and now Allenby and T.E. Lawrence, later to be known as Lawrence of Arabia, had chased them north through Palestine, walking together through the Jaffa Gate, Jerusalem, in 1917. Clark went solo, completing his first flight without an instructor on dual controls in 1918. Clark met Lawrence when he landed at their airfield on his way to Cairo for lunch. The most striking thing Clark noticed about the untidy colonel was that he had lieutenant colonel's rank on one shoulder and lowly lieutenant pips on the other, displaying the promotions he had received in just 3 years for organising the most successful insurgency in British history. Clark dearly wanted to join Lawrence's X-Flight, which fought over wide swathes of desert. The Bedouin ranged over the flanks of the Ottoman army, watched over by this array of sunburnt Antipodean pilots and their motley collection of aircraft. Back then, aged 19, Clark had no idea what sort of education he was receiving. But when General Allenby's cavalry reached Damascus,